there we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first panel of Saturday at SCG Con Summer 2019. Thank you all for coming out. This panel, I believe, is just officially called a magical life or something like that. But lifetime of magic, and it should just be called Brian and Gavin Talk for an hour. So with us today we have Gavin Barry. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I am Gavin Beret, senior game designer and product architect at Wizards of the Coast. But more importantly, I've known Brian since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Me and my mom and my brother met him on the bus in Kansas City to JSS Nationals one year. And Brian was like the nicest, most upstanding guy, gave me advice for my deck that I didn't take, and I lost horribly because of it. And I don't know, visited him in New York a bunch of times. He basically got me to where I am today. Like, I listened to his podcast and growing up with him and Flores. My favorite BDM fact is I listened to his podcast so much that when I went to a new game store in Seattle, I had like adopted a New York accent. And they're like, oh, this kid's from New York. And they thought for months I was from New York City until eventually they learned I was just a local Seattle kid who would listen to too much Top 8 Magic. So it's a real story.
That's insane to me, by the way.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. I'm Brian David Marshall. I'm the Pro Tour Historian Emeritus. I owned a store called Neutral Ground. I run a company called Top 8 Magic where we do magic podcasts and once in every 10 years publish a book about magic. But one of the things that kept us going on Top 8 Magic was we had maybe 3 very persistent listeners who were very active in whatever you would call our forums at the time. And Gavin was chief among them. And it was like, oh, wow, people are listening to this. I mean, I don't know if it's anybody else other than Gavin, but, you know, people are actually listening. And it was great. And we developed a friendship over the years out of that. And it's one of the things that I'm just super grateful to the Magic community for, that you have this opportunity to put something out there, have someone respond to it, find some sort of kinship with what you're doing. And, you know, then, I mean, I count Gavin among one of my, you know, really treasured friendships that I made in Magic. And that's really special.
Right. And here are 2 people separated by literally a whole country by, you know, we're different ages.
We're very close, very close.
Yeah, I mean, we're close, but only by a year or 2 off, right? I mean, it's pretty close. And yet we still have this amazing connection through this game. We have all the same silly stories. We have, or, you know, at least we've heard all the same silly stories. All that stuff. Now, BDM, speaking of stories, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Should we have taken the $750?
We should have.
We should have definitely taken.
We should have definitely done it. It was a mistake. We were flying from various places to Washington, D.C., and then from Washington, D.C., we were all catching a commuter flight here to Roanoke, which was oversold apparently by 14 people.
Yeah, they come over the loudspeaker and they're like, attention everyone in Roanoke, or in Washington, D.C. airport, we need 14 people to get off this plane. Also, we won't fly until 14 people agree to get off this plane.
Yeah,
it was a real hostage-style scenario.
we're going to just start shooting people until this plane can take off. And they offered a $750 travel voucher. And I realized it was, we kind of had a little bit of moment of hesitation where we didn't pull the trigger on it. And then it filled out. But I realized certainly, you know, there's been a lot of talk in the Magic community, people doing GoFundMes to get to Barcelona. Cover your ears, you don't have to listen to this as a Wizards to play. But I should have just taken the travel voucher and actually donated it to somebody trying to go to Mythic Championship Barcelona. I'm hoping I get a travel voucher on the way home. If I do, that's absolutely what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of a cool way of, you know, helping people out of getting to their first Mythic Championship.
And we were definitely punished for not taking the bus, right?
Yeah.
So it was 14 people had to get off and take a bus from Washington, D.C. to Roanoke, which is like 4 hours or so, let's say, or at least they told us.
5-ish hours.
It was 4 hours. It was during rush hour. Who knows what was going to happen? But then we're like, all right, BDM, we're like, fine, we'll not take the $750. We'll get on the plane. BDM, you were in the front row of the plane. Why don't you describe the sequence of actions that went on from there?
So we get on the plane. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit. We've got to do a little bit of math. We've got to do a little bit of math.
Now, have you ever been on a plane and had the pilot be like, sorry, guys, we can't take off. We got to do some math.
And we got to figure something out. We got to figure, you know, and so I go to sleep, right? I close my eyes. I'm pretty tired. I wake up. We're on the ground. I'm like, oh, great, we landed. No, we're still there. They're still doing math. They've got one guy's got his calculator app open on his phone. The other guy's got a bunch of scratch paper. And at this point, I get an alert from United, our airline, and it says, yeah, we're sorry for the delay. Your flight's delayed about, an hour and a half here because of severe weather. And I'm like, no. I just tweet them immediately. I'm like, no, it's not severe weather. The pilot has said, if I can do this math, we can take off. I heard him. He's right there. I could hit him in the back of the head if I wanted to. And so I tweeted them, and then United's like, no, it's weather. It's weather. And I just have this sort of absurdist Orwellian conversation with some United Twitter bot, I guess. I don't even know what it is. And they're just like, no, it's weather, we assure you. And I'm like, I can interview people and record them on my phone if you'd like, And they're like, oh no, that won't be necessary. It's weather.
And that's why SCG Con brought to you by Delta, great airline. Yeah, if Frank Karsten had been on that plane, we'd been out of there in 5 minutes, right?
5 minutes. Frank Karsten, let's go.
Right, no problem.
We could have just messaged him.
So this sounds like
we could have just Facebook messaged him.
Just snap this picture. Look, Frank, you do the math for us. We got a plane to catch. Tell me how to make this plane take off and how many petitioners I should play in my pauper deck. Those are the two things I need to know. We're good to go.
So this sounds like it was a pretty bad travel story.
But Roanoke is a great city to make up for it, so it's all good. I'm glad I'm here at SCG Con.
Is this the worst travel story that you've had, BDM? As far as traveling for Magic goes?
I've been pretty lucky traveling for Magic. I mean, obviously, just the opportunity to get to travel for Magic is pretty fortunate. But I've been pretty lucky in general with my flights. I mean, most of my real horror stories come from my time in the comic book industry. But that's not a story fit for, it's not safe for work. So
sure.
I'll skip that one.
Gavin, what was one of your most memorable travel experiences for Magic? Because I think most people might know your most memorable, which I don't think that was directly related to Magic.
No, the volcano story.
The volcano
If
story.
you don't know the volcano story, if you Google Gavin Volcano, it's the first results. You can do it all right now on your phones. You can stop the video.
Just hold on for a second. No. The volcano story. That's just something
story. Gavin
can say. He's like, no, oh, you mean the volcano story?
The time I fell down a volcano, yes.
You might know me from the volcano story.
So there's this time long story about a volcano, but and if you Google Gavin Volcano, it is the first results. There was a kid with a science fair project, but I beat him out on SEO eventually. I crushed him in the ground. But I flew back to Fort Lauderdale the next year actually to go for another event, and I'm getting the cab. And I'm taking the cab to wherever I'm going, and the cabbie's kind of chatty. We're chatting back and forth, and eventually he's like, "I gotta tell you this story. There's this guy who fell on this volcano, and I've heard all about it. Let me tell you what's going on." He tells me my own story back to me. He's incorporated new elements, like a cougar or whatever that was chasing me. And at the end of it, he's like, "What'd you think?" And I'm like, I was that guy. And he's like, "Yeah, whatever. Get out of my car." And there's no way he believed me. So one of my most Magic memorable travel stories is. Before I came to Wizards, I was a pro player, and so I went to Pro Tour San Juan, Mythic Championship San Juan, however you want to call it these days.
It's still called Pro Tour San Juan. It's just a Mythic Championship.
Right. And so it's in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Great place. Highly recommend going. But the thing is, I was in college at the time, and on Tuesday, I've got a final. That's basically, if I'm not there, I failed the class.
Yeah.
And I've talked to my teacher. He's totally cool about it. He's like, you can miss as much as you need to for this Magic thing, but if you're not back by Tuesday, you're flunking the class. And it was my last semester, so I needed to do this thing, right? And so I'm in San Juan, finish the Pro Tour, whatever. Go on Monday to leave to get back in time. And San Juan, Seattle, it's not very close. And I go to check in, and it's not working. That's weird. Why isn't this thing working? Why isn't it working? So I go up to the front and I talk to them about it. And my ticket had been booked by Wizards a day later. It had been booked on Tuesday morning, and I needed to be in my class on Tuesday morning. So it wasn't going to fly, literally. And so I talk to them can I do anything? They're like, I don't know. Here's a standby ticket. Go test your luck. So I go through security and whatever, and I talk to a bunch of airplanes, try and see if I can get on them, and no dice. And so I'm sitting there crying into my tortilla or whatever. And Bill Stark comes around, and Bill, of course, seasoned travel pro, travel for coverage all the time, and he comes over to me, and I explain the situation to him, and Bill's like, "Phew, sounds rough, buddy," and I'm like, "It is," and he's like, "Maybe I can help you out. Follow me." So I go to his gate, And he goes up and he talks to them for a long time. There's waving wild hands and like pointing back at me or whatever. And I'm like, don't know what's going to happen. And he comes out to me and he's like, all right, they might call your name in a few minutes. Stay tuned. So I'm sitting there. The plane's like moments from taking off. And eventually they call my name. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I go up there, I get my ticket, I go on board, and I look down at my ticket, and it's in first class, the first class ticket. And I sit down, and Bill Stark is right next to me. And I'm like, holy smokes, Bill. How'd you manage this? He's like, don't worry about it. You're very welcome. Bill is a great guy, works for Wizards now. So I sit down, I'm having a good flight in first class, and about a quarter of through the flight, one of the staff comes up to me, one of the stewardesses, and she's like, look, your dad here really did so much for you to try and get you on board. It was really nice of him. I know you mean so much to him as a child. And Bill just looks over me and is like,
Bill is closer in age to Gavin than I am.
Yeah, I thought that story was going to go in a completely different direction when you were like, Bill Stark came over and was, hey, what's up? Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, see ya.
There were two ways that could have gone. Yeah. But Bill, he's a good friend of mine now. So good guy. But yeah, we've had so many travel stories, I'm sure, over the years, and not to mention getting recognized for Magic when traveling. Has that ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it also happens it happens when I'm traveling, and it happens when people travel to New York, and I'll get approached by people sometimes, like when I'm getting pizza or buying coffee. It's a bizarre feeling, because then, the Magic community is kind of small compared to the sort of larger world, and to have that sort of, then people are like, who is that? You were talking to me, you took a picture with him. Oh my God, who was it? Should I take a picture? No, you shouldn't. Do you ever play Magic? No, then you don't want to take a picture.
The number of times someone has come and taken a picture with me, and the person who we're there with is clearly confused, also comes over to then take a picture with me, is like, well, I can't miss out on this opportunity, Like, I don't know who it is, but maybe the internet will care. That happens a lot.
Have you ever had the experience of being mistaken for someone else in the Magic community outside of a Magic event?
Outside of a Magic event, no. Inside of a Magic event, I have been mistaken for both AJ Soccer and, you'll never believe this one, Brian Kibler. Someone came up to me once and was like,
I got a Kibler too once.
There's just got to be some serial Kibler out there. Just like walks around being like, oh, hey, Brian Kibler, just like, See what it looks like, right? Just like goes up to LSD and is like, are you Brian Kibler? And, some dude is.
I think it might be a first name thing for me, because I also get BBD a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So,
the 3-letter acronym starts with a B.
People will post on BBD's wall about like, hey, good job by the Mets today, and he's like, I don't care about the Mets. You got me confused with BDM again.
And then you post on your wall like, congrats on winning the championship. You're like, oh yeah, thanks, I really appreciate it. That was a good run.
Before I got my glasses, I actually got Patrick Sullivan once.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that.
Which I was like, that's a little closer. Yeah, at least blonde, short hair, whatever. So let's talk a little bit about. We talked a little bit about outside of Magic events. Can you tell us, like, we hear often because of social media and things like that, and because you're both very prolific and write and do podcasts and things like that, are there any stories that you have from like a Grand Prix or a Magic Fest or a Mythic Championship, anything like that, that we haven't heard of that might be a very interesting story?
That are safe for this?
That would be safe for this. Like, just something that would be interesting or something that's fun.
A tough question.
Is it?
Well, it's like, so the thing about stories is everyone only has 3 good stories. I've told 2 of them here already. I only got one left in the canister. And like, once you get through the pre-canned stories, what's left, right? So we've told all of our best, because we are so prolific, we've told all of our favorite stories so many times.
Right. That's the thing, right? A story I haven't told is pretty difficult to. I go to the well a lot.
I've got a story.
I am going to say this prompt was provided by Gavin Beret, who did not think of a story to go along with his prompt.
Well, I mean, at one point, Jeremy emails me like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, and he's like, so I've got this panel with you and BDM. Not a lot of questions are coming in for it. How are you going to fill the time for an hour? And in my head, I'm like, it's me and BDM. We could fill 6 hours if we needed to. And but I'm like, I better send Jeremy an answer. Here's some words, I guess. We'll figure it out.
You just farmed it out to an intern. We all know.
Yeah. I was like, hey, Donald Smith, can you just give him some answers? It's really important.
New guy.
Actually, I do have a story. I've told this one once, but I haven't told it many times. So growing up, I have a brother. His name's Tanner. He is 2 years younger than I am. We played Magic together all the time. Actually, he was there when I met
I was just
BDM.
going to say, Tanner was in Kansas City, right?
Yeah, he was there in Kansas City. Younger brother, better Magic player than I was, and then he quit to go have a great life at Amazon or whatever, and I kept playing Magic. Super smart kid, love him. But we always had, of course, a sibling rivalry, right? And so we'd show up to our game store. We were like the Verhey brothers, right? Like bashing into each other, and like FNM would always be number 1, number 2, and it was like, who's going to come in which place this week? And then he quit playing Magic for a while, but every now and then I would be able to drag him back in. I'd be like, hey, there's an event coming up, come and play in it. And so there was a Grand Prix trial for Grand Prix Los Angeles, and I needed the buys because I was like trying to get on the Pro Tour or whatever. And I was like, okay, I got to get my 3 buys for this event. And I knew there was a GPT, so I was like, all right, look, I'll bring my brother, Tanner, look, please come and play. I'll get you a deck. I'll pay your entry fee. Come and play. And then you can help block for me, right? You can beat all the people who are going to be along the way. And then when we're in the finals together or whatever, we'll prize split, and it'll be great. We'll have a great time. And he's like begrudgingly, like, I do it very strategically when my mom's at dinner and like he's trying to look good or whatever. And he, of course, says yes. So great. So it's old extended. I give him mono red. I'm playing elves, and we start playing through this tournament or whatever. We go through a few rounds, and like eventually, it's a small GPT. We're 2 of the better players in the event, and we're both in the top 8, and it's great. So we both win our quarterfinal matchup, and I'm at combo elves, which is a deck that I know how to play inside and out, and he's like red burn, and we get paired in the semis. And so we sit down, and I'm like, well, thanks for coming and playing this event. Like, time for me to go on to the finals, whatever. He's like, I had a pretty good time, actually. Let's play. And I'm like, but you're not going to go to the Grand Prix. He's like, nah, but like, let's just play and see what happens. And I'm like, okay. Well, in my head, I'm like, whatever. It's a great matchup for me. Like, the Elves versus Mono Red is great. I've got like Essence Wardens in my deck, and like, I can flood the board really quickly. Nothing can go wrong. Of course, I like mulligan to 6. He plays. Oh, and before the game, I'm like, well, good luck anyway. He's like, can't wish you good luck. Sorry. I've got Goblin Guide in my deck. That would be folly to wish you good luck. And so obviously he plays turn 1 Goblin Guide, both games. And 8 attacks. There are 0 lands flipped off of them. It's always like a non-land card. I mulligan a bunch, and then I lose. And he goes on to the finals, where he plays Kyle Bodie, who's also trying to get 3 buys to go. And Kyle Bodie is playing High of Mind, which is like, once again, an insanely good matchup for him. Like, mono red's like killing you on turn 4, High of Mind kills you on turn 3 or whatever. And of course, my brother, as you might expect, Kyle Bodie's like, concession, and he's like, no, and then they play, and my brother wins. And he's like, well, I got these 3 buys to this Grand Prix. I guess I need to go to LA, like, let's do this. So I'm like, all right, well, you better use them, whatever. So we go down to LA, we play, and he plays in the tournament, and he's playing for day 2, and he hasn't played Magic in a while. He's playing for day 2, and I'm playing my match trying to make day 2, which I lose, of course, and I go and see him afterward, and I'm like, how'd it go? Did you make day 2? And he's like, no, didn't make day 2. And I was like, who'd you play against? And he's like, I don't know, some pro player, can't remember his name, and I don't know. And then the day later, I'm like looking at the website on my phone or whatever, and he's like, oh, the guy who won this, that's the guy who beat me in the last round of the Swiss. So yeah, that's the end of that story. That's a story with the odd story arc. It ends with him not winning the event, which would be a great way for that story to end. You got to workshop it. As you can tell, I have told this one less times. I need to workshop it a little bit, or lie a little more, or something like that. Be like, yeah, and then he won the Grand Prix. No one's gonna fact check that, right? But anyway, there's my story. Now maybe BDM thought of something.
Who got started first playing Magic between you and your brother?
Basically simultaneously. So I was playing a different card game at the time, one aimed at a younger generation in the late 90s. You might be able to imagine what kind of games were out then. And I was in a Wizards of the Coast game store.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, right, in Tacoma, Washington. It was January 21st. And
my old roommate might have been working there at that point.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
We just look at like pictures of our childhoods, like be in the background of each other, right? And so I'm playing this other game, and I finish it, and the storekeeper's like, talk to my mom, and she's like, hey, your kid's really enjoying this other thing. Do you think they'd be into Magic? And my mom looks at me, and is like, I think you'd like this Magic game? And the answer to that question might be the single biggest decision I've made in my entire life without even knowing it. I'm like, yeah, I'll give this a try. And then I brought it home. I put in the CD-ROM. I learned how to play. I saw like images of like the Pro Tour flashing by. And then I called my brother into the room. We had to I taught him how to play or whatever. And then that was all we did that summer. Like it was right at it was like starting in January, got packs for a few months. And that summer, that was all we did. And every video game went out the window.
Wow.
Every sporting activity went out the window, much to my parents' chagrin. And we just sit and play and build decks for hours.
What was the card that was the fish hook in the cheek for you? Like, what was the card that just nailed you for this game?
I think it was rocks. It was foil. It was green. It was big. Like, can't be a rock. So I didn't really have, like, many new players, I didn't really have a concept of like color balance when building a deck. So my first deck was like the deck I got out of this box. And then as I opened new booster packs, I'd be like, well, these all look good, and just put them into the box. And then, before you know, you've got a 125 color deck. You've got like 2 planes to cast your dub spell in there somewhere. Yeah, that was how I started. We would sit there and just play against each other for hours on end until one day we decided to go to a local game store, and they showed us kind of the rest of the ropes.
Yeah, mine was, I think, Shivan Dragon.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like, it was like I'd opened some product and played with it. I liked the game a lot, but opening a Shivan Dragon out of a booster pack was definitely the card where I'm like, oh, wow. It was just like, how can you lose, right? Obviously, the game is very different when you play it, past that. But that for me was the card that secured it. I still remember my friend and I, Tony, when we bought our first thing, we bought unlimited starter decks at the store, right? They were still out new. And we played, and we just played with those starters. We would just shuffle them and play them against each other, and we played for ante. And so we got tired of trying to keep track of who was winning more. And so what we did was we took these unlimited starter decks, and we took bingo markers, and I put green dye on the side of my unlimited starter deck, and Tony put red dye on the side of his unlimited starter deck. And then as we played back and forth for ante, we could like watch where, my Mox went, where his Ancestral went, where our dual lands went. Yeah.
And so if you got a Mox out there with a red Sharpie,
I'd like it back.
Oh, good times. Shivan Dragon still captures people's imaginations today. I've actually got a fun Shivan Dragon story. So we do this thing at Wizards where when we want to see how new players are learning Magic. So we brought in, we do these like user research studies where we're bringing people who don't know how to play Magic. We give them a rule book and 2 of the welcome decks, and we walk out of the room. And then we watch them through 2-way glass and just see what happens, right? Like, how far did they get into it? And some groups do really, really well, and some groups totally fizzle out. Like, some people have never played a card game in their life, some have played other card games, right? And often really hilarious things will happen. And I'll never forget this one that we're watching, where it's going remarkably well. Like, the whole thing is going great. They've learned how to like tap their lands, they're casting spells, they're attacking and blocking, and they're using, if you've ever played with the welcome decks, right? These are the welcome decks that we give out for free, and they're a compilation of cards from around standard, and there's like a couple extra cards we put in there that are just for the welcome decks. So Shivan Dragon is one of those such cards. Right. And someone casts Shivan Dragon, and they're all excited, their opponent's all excited. We're flipping out how good it is. And then the next turn, they untap, and they attack with Shivan Dragon. There's no blockers, and he like looks down, he's like, take 17. We're like, what? What is going on here? And we're like, in the room, we're so confused. We can't figure out. We're like, take 17. They're playing perfectly so far. How do they get to take 17 from this attack? And we're like scratching our head, trying to figure it out. And we look at a picture of the Shivan Dragon. And we look at the picture of the rule book we gave them. And the arrow in the rule book pointing to the card is like kind of like cut off and at a weird angle. And they think it's pointing to the expansion symbol, which reads 17 with a swoosh mark, and they're like, yeah, 17 power. Naturally, that's where this comes from. So that taught us a very important lesson about how to lay things out in our rule books.
How to label things, yeah.
Yeah, labeling, very important.
So we talked a little bit about the cards that kind of, as you said, fish hooked you into the game, that the cards that you really got into the game for. Everybody at some point in their Magic career finds themselves kind of down and out. They find themselves kind of a little bit like, maybe I'll take a break, or some people do take a break, sometimes for several years. But as the saying goes, you never really quit Magic, you just take breaks. What point in your Magic history, or like what point in your life, did you know, okay, this is the game for me? Because you've both been involved in the game for a very long time. There's always that hook of, okay, this is where I'm interested in the game. But what was that point of, all right, this is what I'm going to be dedicating my life to?
So I can say I started playing in '94 over the summer, ran a tournament in November of '94, and we had no idea. We bought a set of Arabian Nights to give away as a prize. We tried to do some side events. If you look at Marshall Sutcliffe's page, his YouTube channel, you can actually find a video we did about this 94 tournament, which is super cool. We had video footage of it. So video coverage of the finals. And like several hundred people showed up.
Oh, wow.
And multiple people who met at that tournament got married.
Oh.
And people who met at that tournament are still friends today. And I know a ton of the people who were at that event still today. Myself, I'm friends with a lot of those people. And seeing that, you know, it's a cliche to talk about the gathering, but actually seeing that was the first time I saw, you know, I played with my friends, most of whom stopped playing, right? Like Magic is a weird game. It's like a little bit of a sorting hat. Like not everyone stays with it, right? Some people play it on a much more casual basis. My friend Tony, who I started playing with, he'll still play Duels of the Planeswalkers when that was out, or maybe he's going to download Arena now. And he's always had a relationship with the game, but it is super, super casual. And so making all these new friends and meeting all these new people and all these new business opportunities that came up out of that, it was pretty clear to me almost immediately that this was something that I was going to be involved with for a while. I don't think I predicted that it would be 25 years I'd still be involved with Magic in some way. Although I guess right now this is the first time where I'm actually just a player. This is the first time since '94 where I am just a Magic player. But yeah, it was pretty profound. We ran the second tournament in February, and we had 1,000 people show up.
Wow.
And we got charged and we got hammered on the hotel costs because no one would leave. Right, so you know how this works, right? You booked a convention hall, right?
Booked the next day,
and people wouldn't leave. They just wouldn't leave. We couldn't make them go. They just wanted to play more Magic. They wanted to do a Grand Melee. They wanted to do, sealed deck, which I think was called a skills deck back then or something. And we were like, oh, I guess we need to open a store.
Yeah.
Because people just wanted to play Magic and meet other people who played Magic.
That is one of the things where you may not realize as a player that one of the reasons why they start breaking down all of the equipment at a Magic Fest or at an Open or anything of that nature on Sunday night when you're still playing Magic, when the main tournament is still going on, they start breaking down things because if we stay past midnight, they charge you for an entire extra day. So
it's like when the restaurant starts flicking the lights on.
Yeah, they start flicking. That is exactly what it is.
Not that I've ever stayed at a restaurant until they kicked me out.
Until they actually kicked you out.
Last night we were pretty close. Yeah. Last night we were talking about movies very, very loudly, and to the point where other tables are like looking at BDM as he's talking about how he feels about Jaws. And I think they were pretty close to a few points the staff looked over and they're like, should we have these guys get out? But Jaws is a great film, right?
Jaws is possibly it's my number one or my number two. So, all time.
What's the other option?
Miller's Crossing.
Miller's Crossing, yeah. It's great. And there's some people at this show who will not be named, who are at dinner with us and are on the Commander's Rules Committee, who don't believe Jaws is a great film. And for this mysterious person, we have strong opinions about that.
Yes.
So, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was homeschooled growing up. So it was me and my brother, and it's part of where the Magic thing came from. It's like me and my brother would be at home all the time. We'd be playing Magic. And so the community was super, super important to me because we grew up in a tiny little town called Edmonds, Washington. It's basically a place with like a ferry and like old people go to retire and stuff like that. And I was homeschooled. So, my mom tried to get me out. Like I did Boy Scouts and baseball and stuff like that to make friends, but it wasn't as much of it. And there's a tiny little game store called Bigfoot's Hobbies and Games, where after a few months of playing Magic, I went to go start playing. And I made friends there immediately. And although my parents thought it was a little weird, they're like 11-year-old kid who's hanging out with like 30-year-olds or whatever, right? Yeah. Like I was fine with it, they were fine with it. And because we had this unique like shared love of Magic, it was really cool. But the moment I most vividly remember of like, wow, I want to be a part of this. I've been playing there for maybe 3-4 months. And there were only a few of us kids there, right? It was me and my brother and a couple others. And there's this one kid who I'd gotten kind of close with. And we're sitting there playing Magic. And afterwards, he's like, hey, why don't you come by the shop on a day where there's not a tournament running? We'll sit down and we'll just hang out. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like this guy just wants to hang out and talk and have fun. And like, yeah, Magic will be a thing that we'll do, but it's a friendship that I've acquired through this game. He just wants to hang out afterwards. And that's where this whole thing really started. And for me now, Magic is the community is what it's all about. Like I have friends all around the world. I'll travel all around the world. I'll stay with people. I've stayed on numerous sofas and beds in countries you would never imagine through Magic. By the way, the kicker, that kid in that store in my little town of Edmonds, Washington, his name is Kenji Igashira. Maybe you've heard of him.
Is that really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
We played in the same game store together growing up because we're the same age basically.
Wow.
And we both played at the same little tiny shop. And now he's a big time streamer and I'm a lowly Wizards employee. That's how it works.
Let me ask you something, Gavin. Were you a big foodie growing up?
Absolutely not. Not even a little. My diet consisted of like spaghetti and pizza and maybe my parents felt frisky, a salad sometimes, and top ramen and all this stuff. In fact, this is so disgusting to say in retrospect, and apologies to anyone out there who does this now, but we would go to like Costco or Sam's Club, and for dinner, we would each get our own individual Costco pizza. And we would sit down and we just eat the whole pizza right there. And I remember at the time, people would like walk by us and they'd look at us kind of strange, and I just go back to my pizza because it was delicious. But in retrospect, I'm like, I probably wasn't what I should have been doing at that age. And also, to me as an adult now, the fact that this gross is not that I ate so much pizza, but it was all Costco pizza.
Right.
It's like, I've been to New York, I've tasted the forbidden fruit.
You've been to Ellen B. Spumoni Gardens.
I've been to Ellen B. Spumoni Gardens, which is delightful. Yeah, whenever I go to New York, I'm like, BDM, where should I go? You know, last night, I'm like, BDM. Oh, I learned about a new kind of food last night. The bagel supplement.
Oh, it's not a bagel. It's like a bagel variant.
Bagel variant, yeah.
Yeah. It's called a bialy.
Okay, how many out there know what a bialy is? No one. See, I gotta go and have this bialy. There's the bialy store.
It's called the bialy store
in New York. Yeah, I gotta go there.
It's great. It's great. You will love it. I'm certain. But you've certainly embraced the play the game, eat the world.
Absolutely.
Motto of Magic, right? Like, what do you think are the top 3 Magic-related meals you've eaten in your Magic career?
Magic-related meals I've ever. Well, I'll tell you, this is such a fan service moment. But there was a time I flew to New York and I hung out with BDM all afternoon. And he just took me around to a ton of different tiny hole-in-the-wall places that I'd heard about on like Top 8 Magic and stuff like that for years. I felt like the Top 8 Magic food tour. It's like, all right, we're gonna go get these pork buns over here. We're gonna go to this ice cream place over here, right? And it was like being inside of a podcast, right? With all the sounds of like the New York City going around. And or the first time I ever went to New York, actually. So if you've never been to New York, I flew into some airport that wasn't New York, and I got on a bus. And then I took a bus into Times Square, and I'd never been to New York before. And it was actually coming out to Star City Games, Jersey. Okay. And I'd never been to New York before, and I was like, well, I'm going to go to New York beforehand. And I get off the bus, and it lets you off in Times Square, and you get off, and you just look up, and you're like, whoa, where am I?
And it's an amazing sensory overload, right?
It's unreal. It's like, you hear a lot about New York, but it can't prepare you for like being in Times Square, seeing all these flashing screens around you, people walking by quickly, hot dog stands on the side of the road or whatever. And so I'm there, and I'm staying with Steve Sadin, who's an old friend of mine. And that night, he takes me out to Bonchon for the first time, which is like this delicious, fried chicken,
Korean fried chicken
place. And once again, it was like being inside of a podcast. And like, I'll never forget that. Like, I came to New York, I saw the sites, I hung out with Magic players.
We went to Katz's that trip too, didn't we?
Oh yeah, that was the first time to Katz's. Like, once again, that was actually where I met up with Flores for the first time. I think was that time at Katz's. And
I remember Jerry was there.
Yeah.
I think Ben Hayes was there. That was a good weekend.
It was a really good weekend. It's like it's always about the people. But the thing about BDM is, Magic players have a very wide range of like some people don't want to go eat fancy places and some people do want to eat fancy places. And I learned a lot about how to be a foodie from BDM, like just hearing his stories. Like, here's what's good, here's what's not good, and then how to cook properly. Like,
I like the fancy, but I really, really like the not fancy.
Right.
I like the range.
I would say, like, when you look at my ranking of top restaurants, it starts off at the bottom like not fancy, and then it curves slowly into fancy for a while, and at the end it takes a sharp left hook into not fancy again. You're like, yeah, the best places are all like when you're in China and you walk down the street and you walk into a tiny place, you buy 10 dumplings, you don't know what's in them, you eat them, you walk out, and 5 minutes later you're like, I don't want some more dumplings. And you walk back inside, they sit you down again and they serve you 10 more dumplings. You don't know what's in them still, and they're all great. They're all so good.
What's the weirdest food you've eaten in your travels for Magic? Let's keep it, let's keep this Magic focused.
Oh yeah, right. I mean, this is we don't want to deviate from Magic now. That would be That would be something horrible.
The KFC Double Down.
That's a real curveball.
That was the winner's treat to everyone when we scrubbed out a PTQs for us.
Right. So
our PTQ food was the moon over my hammy.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too.
I think that's Denny's.
Denny,
right?
Denny's, yeah.
The moon over my hammy. That's the like official. We lost at the PTQ and we need to drive from midnight to 3 a.m. to go home. But let's fill up on some moon over my hammy.
After they correctly discontinued the Double Down, it became the burrito round.
All right, so this is Magic adjacent.
Sure.
Magic adjacent. It's as close as I'm going to get. So I went to the Philippines recently, and the Filipino Magic players are maybe the nicest Magic players I have found anywhere in the world. Have you been back there before, BDM?
I've never been there.
It is unreal. So for context, whenever I travel somewhere new, and I travel both for work and also for pleasure a lot, whenever I travel somewhere new, the first thing I do is I go on Facebook and I search like Magic the Gathering city name, and then I make a post that's just like, hey, I'm coming into town. I'd love to meet some local Magic players. Let's hang out. It's a really cool way to do it. You get to meet new people. You get to see what the Magic community is like, go to their stores, and then people will show you around and stuff. You can feel like you're a person there. And so I don't think much about it. It's like 8 p.m. at night. I make a post that's like, hey, I'm coming to the Philippines. Anyone wants to hang out, let me know. I go to bed. Well, it's later, I guess, because I don't go to bed at 8 p.m. But anyway, I make a post and I go to bed. And I wake up in the morning, and I have something like 120 unread comments and 30 new messages in my inbox. And everyone is flipping out that I'm coming to the Philippines. It's like a huge deal. So I'm in the Philippines for like 6 days or something, and they make a whole itinerary for me. They're like, you can stay at my place over here. We got an itinerary over here. You're gonna fly to this island at this point in time. You've got a panel we're gonna give you at the store, and it's like, I'm like, this is awesome. Like, it's so cool. We're gonna go canyoneering, and so like where you like jump off cliffs and like run through stuff. I'm like, oh, jumping off cliffs sounds great. And it's wonderful. So I get there, and the Philippines people are amazing, and we eat a lot, and they're really into food there, which is fantastic. So we eat a lot of their food. And on the whole, I had a really, really good time. I was shown around, taking to all kinds of restaurants. But some of the Filipino food I thought was delicious. And this is just for me personally. This is no citing to anything in the Philippines. But there were some things that I had more trouble with than others. And their trademark dish, the first night, we all go out to eat, and they're like, all right, Gavin, you gotta have our trademark Filipino dish. It's called sisig. You have to have it.
What's it called?
Sisig. Okay? And what it is, I'm like, what is it? And they're like, oh, you're gonna love it. So I put in the order, they bring it out, it's sizzling, smells a little funny. I'm like, what is this thing? They're like, oh, you take a pig head and you boil it down, and then you just eat like the bits that remain. You kind of poke around, it's fried, a bit of butter on it or whatever. And I try a bite of it, and I'm like, oh. This is not for me. I'm not into it. But I eat a little bit, being polite. But I'm like, well, at least I'm done with that. The next night, I go out to dinner, different group of people. They're like, Gavin, you got to try this dish. And I'm like, oh, maybe it'll be different. And if they're against the Sieg, obviously, they're like, well, maybe it'll be different. And I'm trying things twice. I'm always never trying things twice. And it comes out, and I still can't handle it. I still eat a little bit. And then I'm like, okay, night 3, we don't have it. Night 4, I go out to dinner, a new group of people, and they're like, Gavin, you gotta try this thing. You're gonna love it. And I'm like, oh no. And so it comes out, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I just can't. I really can't do this. I can't have more of this pig's head. So I pile it onto my plate, and then when they're not looking, I'm like dog style, like putting it off. And once again, this is no sense of the Philippines. I'm sure a lot of people might like it. You might really enjoy it. The food there in general, I deeply enjoyed, and the people were amazing. But that one dish just was totally not for me, and it's everywhere. Like every restaurant has their take on it. Boiled basically
pig head.
Yeah, a variant on pig's head, basically. SISIG. You can look it up. That's one of the weirder things I've eaten. But when it comes to non-Magic events, I've eaten balloons. I've eaten which are delicious when they're made with taffy, and crickets and zebra and ostrich and all kinds of stuff. When I was in Africa, they took me out for like a brie, which is like where you get a bunch of different meats and you cook them all there, and they serve like ostrich and kangaroo and whatever. It was delicious. Anyway,
very nice.
What about you, BDM? You must have some wild thing you've eaten. I taught for a long time to stall. It was only for stalling purposes.
I mean, nothing like crazy like that. I have had a pig's head, but it was at Pied de Cochon in Montreal, and it had a lobster coming out of its mouth. It was their surf and turf.
That's the hybrid I can get behind, right?
Yeah,
that is
that was like the Simic dish of all time. But like I mean, is this pig's head like that? Like where you're like eating like the cheek, or you're like, because I mean, a pig's head has got a lot of really delicious meat. Like the ears can be really tasty.
Yeah, pig ears are good.
People were eating the eyeballs. I don't do eyeball.
I don't do eyeball.
Yeah.
It looks like this.
Oh, see, yeah, no, that's.
Yeah, you can Google it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not what you think.
You should Google Gavin in a volcano eating sisig.
That's for my next trip to the Philippines. now that I've told this story, they're like, I get the volcanoes ready, sending him in to appease the volcano gods or whatever. Good times.
My favorite dish that I've ever eaten traveling for Magic was in Singapore
Oh, Singapore is so good.
at the night market, and it was the simplest thing. It was stingray. It was like a fillet of stingray that was just like slathered in a chili sauce, wrapped in banana leaves, and then just like I believe it was just like cooked over some coals, and it was unbelievable. And it's a dish I think about probably like twice a month. Like, oh, I really want to have that again.
Singapore is for food is just unbelievable because you have all that great like Asian style influence in there, but also like they brought in a lot of traditional Western stuff as well, and so you get like a great mishmash. Malaysia is really great as well if you ever have the chance to.
I've been to Kuala Lumpur. Yeah.
Great city, great city for food.
Pretty sure that you're both incorrect though. The best Magic related meal you can ever eat is whatever you eat after having gone to time every round and the day is finally over and you get that food. That's the best meal.
That's fair.
I'll never. So
Cake is also the best meal.
Oh yeah.
So if you win a PTQ, you are obligated to buy your friends cake. And you might not know this yet, but you now know. And it is absolutely the sweetest, most delicious cake that you will ever spend money on, and share it with your friends. It's been completely adopted by the Portland Magic community.
Yeah.
Gabe Carlton Barnes, who used to be in New York, had gone out there and took this tradition there. And it's like, and it really is like a big deal whenever someone from that community wins a PTQ or an MCQ now, I guess they're called. But and you have to treat everyone to something delicious, and it's a great way to share the joy of accomplishing this really big thing in your Magic career.
I brought that to Seattle and did that for a while as well. In fact, on the last PTQ I ever won, I reverse caked. I brought cupcakes to the tournament and gave them out to everybody, and then I won the PTQ. So,
wow.
There's a strategy in there you could think about.
You mentioned Steve Sadin when you came to New York.
Yeah.
Steve was the original cake purchaser when he won a I think it was maybe one of the Ravnica sealed PTQs.
I remember. I think I took it from listening to the Top 8 Magic podcast where you talked. There's probably a podcast called Cake Draft or something like that.
There's one called Wango's Cake. Matt Wang still, I believe, owes cake for when he won the Grand Prix.
Catapult! References only you and I will get, and Matt Wang.
And John Becker.
And John Becker. You did cake drafts, right, as well? Where you would draft 3-on-3, and the loser would have to buy the winning team a cake. You ever do that?
I have not done that.
So here's the deal. You draft 3-on-3, right? Team draft, and then the losing team has to buy the winning team a cake. And the deal is, though, you go to like your local grocery store, just get a cake. But you have to get them to put on the cake whatever the winning team tells you goes on the cake.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah, so you can make it real fun.
Yeah.
I'll let you think about among yourselves about what your options might be. I remember there was a Grand Prix where I finished my round. I was playing Control, and I finished my round really late. I'm like, I have to eat. I've got to eat something. I know the rest of my tournament's not going to go if I don't eat something. So I quickly run out to try and go get something. And I'm in line for too long, and I come back, and the round's been called. Everyone's seated. I'm like, crap, I'm going to get a game loss. So I look at my thing. I run to my seat. I sit down. I've got my food, and my opponent's not there. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I have the food. My opponent's not here. And lo and behold, 4 minutes later, the guy behind me in line saddles up, sits down, and we both have game losses. But we're like, do you want to eat my food? He's like, it's okay if I eat my food. We're kind of just eating while we're playing. It was great.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So we've talked.
But can I actually tell one more story like that? Just because it popped in my head and I love the story. Speaking of stories I haven't told many times. So there are Magic Online PTQs, right? You go and you play on Magic Online to try and qualify. And we're often at weird hours of the day because you want to give Europe time for its PTQs and Japan time for its PTQs. When you're trying to qualify, I just played in all. I was like, I'm going to play in all these. I'm going to try and do it. And at one point there was like a 2 a.m. PTQ, and I was exhausted. And so I didn't take a nap beforehand, and I go and play this PTQ, and I'm signed up. I'm sitting at my computer screen. It's like 20 minutes before it starts, and the next thing I know, I'm raising my head up, and I'm like, I slept through my round of the PTQ. And I look at the computer screen, and it says you've won the match. And I'm like, what happened? My opponent won the dice roll, and he must have fallen asleep too because he just didn't do anything, and I ought to won. Yeah, it was a good time. I wish I had done better in that PTQ, but it was a good start.
So we kind of talk about a lot of different things, but this one comes from Tyler Owens, who submitted this question. What do you think is the most important lesson you've learned through Magic during your time working on it? And I think this can be either something that is related to the game of Magic, like what's the most important lesson you've learned as far as in the game, or what's the most important lesson you've learned just in general for life as part of this game?
To me, so much of it is about listening and collaboration. Like when you're playing Magic, and it's all about the community, like I've said. And so talking with people, hearing them, not just like trying to inject your own opinions, but listen to what they're saying, taking their advice. The thing that always gets me is when someone asks for advice, you give it to them, they're like, I don't really want your advice anyway. And for me, like as when we built a community, built a team up, and we used our team to go around and plan events, I was really focused on trying to bring people together and listen and gather opinions. And it's very easy to be like, no, I'm right, you're wrong. But in reality, listen to everyone else is often the right way to go. And now that I work at Wizards, those collaboration skills are so useful because everything we do is collaborative. And it's important to talk a bunch and understand how we're doing the process together. So that was a huge skill. But really, like everything, I owe at least half of my life skills to Magic the Gathering. Who's the beatdown? One of my favorite articles of all time. I treat it as like how to do conversations. It's like someone's always the beatdown, someone's always the control. And it's right? Like you're talking to someone, they're like telling you stuff a million miles a minute, and you're like, okay, hold up the counter spell for the right comments. So like they're gonna say something, you're like, counter, here's my opinion or whatever, right? And then sometimes you're the one talking really fast, and then you have to like try and burn them out before they counter spell you. These are all very important things I think about constantly. I don't know. What do you think, Brian?
Really interesting thing for me with Magic, it kind of just overlaps with a period of my life where I changed as a person. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, and Magic's really just taught me a lot of, helped me foster a sense of empathy and really caring about other people's experiences, and and I think I was always a pretty good person, but when I was younger, probably not as open to how other people were affected, and being just joyful for other people and for what they do, and really being able to appreciate greatness. I've gotten to see a lot of greatness through my career with Magic, and not just as players, but as people, as game designers, as the way people engage with the world, and I feel like I've been able to give some of that back through how I've interacted with people on camera, and it's been a really cool experience. I don't know if that really answers the question exactly, but it is. We think about Magic as this pretty like cold, hard game in terms of like this is what I need to do. I need to deal 20. I need to kill this person. I need to win my next round, but there's this really deep emotional undertow to all of it, and I really just kind of let myself go with that through my career, and have really felt very, very rewarded for that.
So when I was 11, I wanted to get a job at Wizards. When I was 21, I finally got there, and I started working on Magic, and I'd finally made it, and a lot of my friends started asking me, "Is this what you want to do with the rest of your life?" And I started thinking about it a lot, like, am I actually making a difference, right? Am I really doing something that matters? Because you're making a game, and I could be off, doing something that is like curing malaria, or something that like really impacts people's worlds and lives. And after about the first year, maybe 9 months into it or so, this Make-A-Wish kid comes through, and his literal dying wish, like the thing he wants to do the most in his life, is to come and hang out with us as we make this game. And man, I'm tearing up a little bit, and hearing him talk about how much this game meant to him, how it got him through these hard times, how this changed him, is huge. And all the time in my position at Wizards, I get letters from people that are like, I was really close to killing myself and Magic took me out of it. Or I was going through a really bad breakup and Magic made me keep it together. or I have found an outlet for me. We got a letter about a month and a half ago. This band came through. It was actually for a D&D tour, but at the end we gave them a bunch of Magic product. They met with us a little bit. We gave them some Magic product, and one of the girls in the band was super had really bad ADHD. It really had a lot of trouble focusing, and her mom sent us a letter a few weeks later that was like, "Thank you for giving me my daughter back." Like she couldn't focus on anything. Her and her mom were like totally on the outs. They weren't talking, and then through this game, they started playing and talking, and she would focus on it. She's been to F&M 4 weeks in a row now. Like, it is amazing. And to see how this game has turned people's lives around. So it's not just a fun game we all play. It is really seriously a life-changing thing. And it's a thing that's almost impossible to put into words when you and I talk about the community and about how it has impacted us and changed our lives. But really, it has changed us in ways. When I go back to that moment, when I'm in that game store, and my mom asked me if I want to play Magic, yes or no. For a lot of things in your life, you can like think about, okay, well, if I wasn't doing this, I think I'd know what I'd be like, or if I wasn't doing this, I think I'd know what I'd be like, or didn't take the job, or didn't break off this relationship, or whatever. But with Magic, I truly have no idea what my life would look like if I had said no.
I talk about this all the time, this idea that over the course of your life, there are some very like literal doorways that you walk through. And on the other side of that door, your life is completely altered, right? And so going into the Complete Strategist in the summer of 1994 to buy Magic cards and to meet other people who played Magic was life altering for me. You go back however many years before that and walking into a comic book store, right? And going through that door, and it's like I can't even explain. There's a store in New York called Jim Hanley's Universe, which is where I worked when I started getting involved with Magic. But years before, it was like in the mid '80s. I met friends like, come meet me at the comic store, and I'm like, it's going to be 2 a.m. He's like, we'll be there. And so we go, my friend Tony and I again, and we go open the door, and it's like a Heineken commercial, right? It's like suddenly on the other side of the door, there's this insane party going on, right? People are playing pinball, people are dancing. There's music that is not the music that's played on the radio normally playing. There's people laughing, there's people telling stories. And I can remember that moment super vividly. And that's the door that then led me to the door for Magic. And those are powerful moments. And I don't know. You reminded me of that when you were talking about like this decision. I had thought about that earlier when you were talking about like, okay, do I want to play this game Magic? And it's just amazing.
What I found in my life, and it's so strange, the decisions you think are going to be the biggest decisions you'll ever make are often just like side notes.
Yeah, they don't matter sometimes.
And the random things that you don't even think about are going to ever matter are huge. It's like, should I go to this party tonight? I guess I'll go. And you meet like, the girl of your dreams or whatever, right? Or
that literally happened to me.
Right, there you go. It's like, well, if you hadn't gone, who knows where you would be, right? If you would just show up 5 minutes later, any of that stuff. It's so amazing.
All right, well, thank you guys. That about wraps up our hour here, and we've gone through quite a bit.
Can I tell one more story to leave things on a happy note?
Yes.
I think that this ties into everything that we've done. I don't know if you know the story about me or not, Brian. So before, if I hadn't gone through Magic, a thing that I might be doing right now is acting. Okay, so
I can see it.
I did a little bit of child acting, and then Magic squashed those dreams. My parents were like, "What are you doing?" But anyway, when I was 7 years old, I think I was 6 or 7, there was an audition coming to town for this movie I was really excited about, Star Wars Episode 1, for the role of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars Episode 1. Okay. And so I'm like, Mom, we got to go to this thing. So we go to like the cattle call audition at the mall, and we go, and it's basically like you just walk through. If you've been to a cattle call audition, you just walk through, they look at you, they're like, nah, next, or no, stick around. And I got a call back to be Anakin Skywalker in Episode 1. And I'm so excited. So it's in a few weeks, and it's happening, and I'm like, I got to train. I got to be ready for this. I got to be as prepped as I possibly can be for this moment. And I'm like, what is the one thing I know about Anakin and Darth Vader? It's, So I stand in front of the mirror for hours practicing my Darth Vader like heavy breathing voice. So clearly this is going to be crucial. Like this is going to be the key to the interview. And so I show up for the audition, and they take me through, and they bring me in, and they hand me some script to read, and I'm dismayed. Because the thing I've been practicing for like weeks is not on there. And of course I'm horrible. I probably get flub all my lines or whatever. I'm not a great actor. I don't get a call back. But I'll never forget. I was there in the theater, opening night, Star Wars Episode 1. I'm watching it. I'm watching Jake Lloyd act, and I'm like, that should have been me. I could have definitely done this better. And there's a happy story to end on. Brings it full circle.
All right.
Oh, perfect. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
And
Thanks so much.
Thanks for changing the world with magic. It means a lot.
Yeah, and thank you all for coming out to our panel of A Lifetime of Magic with Brian and Gavin. Our next panel is going to be at 3 o'clock, and that is going to be cosplay from Art to Finish, where we have our wonderful cosplayers who are going to go through several questions, as well as what they would do to create certain costumes. And I hope all of you enjoy the rest of your SCG Con Summer 2019. Thank you for coming out.
Can I go draft Modern Horizons now?
You what?
Can I go draft Modern Horizons?
You can go
now?
draft. You can go draft Modern Horizons now.
Excellent. I'm excited.
Tight site. It's going to happen. Let's do it.
Thank you, everybody.